see now. So I think maybe I could start with the, I'm going to start with that panel in the background. So I'm just picking up some of the Payne's grey and noticing what it looks like against the background. I think a touch of that powder blue into it might work, and a little bit of yellow ochre. So what I'm looking at is the pillar behind the flowers, and I want to use the masking tape. There it is. I'm going to put the masking tape on. Now remember, I was talking about visualizing the space that the flowers are going to occupy. I really like the way that the flowers are highlighted by the dark grey panel behind. So where I'm standing, I want to bring them slightly further to the right so that really you won't see them at all in the video now. But that's kind of the area that I'm focusing on mostly. And in the end, I'm not so bothered if I don't get all of that eucalyptus in, because I feel like this can hold its own, whether that's shooting off the page or not. But my intention is to include the eucalyptus, all right. Okay, so I'm going to start with the panel of grey. And in order for it to read as a vertical, I'm going to put on a bit of masking tape. I'm going to put a touch of water on the brush. Now it's quite warm in this room, and sometimes acrylic can dry quite quickly. You see how it's a bit hairy already? So I'm going to make up a bit more of that colour. So using again the Payne's grey, a little bit of the powder blue, and the yellow ochre. And I'm holding the palette up so that I can see the colour I'm aiming for as I'm making it. And I've got one eye closed in order that I can see again the colour, you know, and see that it's true to what's on the palette for me. Okay, and just dip the brush into the water again. It's helpful to know the consistency of the paint. Sometimes you won't know until you try it on the paper, because each room is different. Like, you can't tell that. So I'd regularly enough dip the tip of it into water if I wanted to go a little bit further. But I wouldn't be wetting the whole lot suddenly, because then you get, unless you want all these runs and drips. And sometimes you won't have complete control, and that's good too. Make chance essential is another thing. So if something happens where there is suddenly way more fluidity than you planned, consider how you can work with that. So it's not as though you can kind of see that everything is meant somehow. And as I do that now, I feel like I want to find where maybe the tabletop will be. I suppose I might bring it down a bit more actually. So this is going to be wetter now. Let me see what will happen. I think that's okay. They've lovely new paintwork here. God help them. But they know me anyway, and I think it's wipeable. So we'll be all right. Okay, so I wanted to bring down the background to the tabletop, right? And the next thing I might do then, I'll take off this. And I suppose, well, let's see, I could kind of put it there, so just to let myself know that the background comes down to about there. And I might even do something, I suppose I could do a little something, even a touch of green maybe. With my eyes half closed, it's generally, I think, green back there. Just something to let us know that that's tabletop there, and there's the background. I could just let that like that. You know, just to have a consistent kind of ledge. Okay, and I'm also considering, having already painted this now, I want to maybe, before it's completely dry, I want to lift off the shape, really focusing on where this daisy is now. There's 1, 2, 3 daisies. Oh, but they'll be lower than that. So the pot is kind of extending. Half of it is below the table, the shelf. And then there's one daisy here, another daisy here, and then the third one turns that way here. I'm going to lift that off when I can a little bit, just to indicate the position of that daisy. I kind of like the sparkles around it too. Like, I don't know if I want them all the way up, but if I did, I could lift it off more. But for now, I think I just want it sparkly around that daisy itself. And that's a bit of making chance essential, because I didn't anticipate that happening. you want to find ways to keep yourself excited, you know, and to be surprised. This is it. Do you want to get a chair, Norma? Are you all right? Yeah.
I get excited about all the mistakes I make. Like,
Oh, really? Well, and if you can, see if you can kind of, like, maybe you don't need this, but I need to be my own cheerleader. When I'm working, I need to be saying, you're doing great, that's fine. Oh, look at that, look what happened there. What'll we do with that feckin' thing?
have to turn it around.
Yeah, there's a bit of reframing. Yeah, I do find that I need to reframe, and it's a very good lesson for life for me. You know, as soon as something happens, to see, I recognize now that there's no benefit to seeing it as a disaster, the thing that's happened. So if I can at all find something good in it, that's what I try and aim for. Now, I'm going to put on the background. You know, I think when I half close my eyes, really the pot of flowers is mostly, the darkest part is the greens in between the daisies and things. And if I explain those sooner rather than later, that's another big thing to have described. So we've got the big thing of the grey behind. The idea of the ledge is explained by its absence, really, by the colour coming up to meet it. If I put in something for the green, and I'm mixing a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of Payne's grey even, into the green to knock the colour out of it. As I look at it, I don't want it to be that green. It's a darker green that I'm seeing here. Now we've got the daisy sticking out there. The other daisy is going to be there. The pot will be below that. And then here-ish is the first area of green that I'm noticing, you know. And that'll help me to outline too the couple of daisies that are there. Okay. Keep the paper towel handy. I can see that when I do the crosshatch thing, there's drips running off it. Don't really want it to be too drippy, so I've just dried the brush by squeezing the bristles and maybe pick up a bit more of the paint. And with my eyes half closed again, I'm just going to kind of find where the dark generally lies. And these greens will extend into the background there too. I'm just going to close that so it's not so noisy. Let's see now when I stand back, and this is another thing, Norma, that's really helpful, is to stand back often. So I want to lift out the daisy that's here and the daisy that's here. Okay. I'm going to do the pot, and then I think I'll let you kind of have a stab at the setup, and then I'll come back and do the daisies in more detail. Does that sound all right? Okay. I feel like it's important to kind of get a balance, isn't it, between explaining something and then when there's enough vigour to do it yourself to kind of harness that and get going. Like, so I'll just lift off this is quite good to be able to lift off. I really love that capacity with this paper and so acrylic.
Slightly shiny.
It's a slightly shiny paper, yeah. And see how it's a bit green? I want it to not be so green there, so I'm just turning it to a clean bit and lifting off even more. And as I'm looking at the daisy, so, you know, I'm already beginning to find some bit of a shape, yeah. And I think too that depends on where I'm standing with the pole behind, but I think this one, I want it to come over the pillar. So when I stand here, that's what I'm seeing, that it's overlapping the pillar as well as the green. And it's about as high, so this daisy to me is about as high as that one, maybe slightly lower. And then there's one that's shooting up the way. And those petals will be interesting to describe later on, maybe with actual paint rather than lifting off. So I think it'll be a combination of lifting off and applying the paint that we'll do here. And I said I would only do the pot, but as I look at that now, I think it might be helpful to put a touch of purple onto this and just swiftly, you know, as soon as I notice something, like to get the colour in, and the dark purple wasn't cutting it on its own. I felt I needed to put something else in, and even maybe, gosh. So I've started with the dark purple, the light purple, and now ultramarine blue, because I feel like it's a bluish, isn't it? And still always keeping an eye on where I am. So here's the daisy here. Oh, there's another daisy lifting out there. There's another one that'll be occupying this space here, kind of. You know that one? And then that'll help me to negotiate where really the purple shapes need to be. And I know that I don't have to set it in stone at this stage. It's really just to kind of get a feeling of the flowers and the position of the purple in relation to the position of the pillar, the position of the other daisies. And with a touch of the hooker's green and the ultramarine blue, I might just do a few little indications just for my own peace of mind, to feel like I've not stopped before I've got to the top of it, like before anchoring down with the vase. And this can be left like that, or I might try and get a bit more the feeling of the eucalyptus. But sometimes you can get away with doing very little. And even just the fact that it's a slightly bluer green, I think, will make this read as though it's the same as that. This one that's shooting off that way. Okay. All right. And now our pot. And what I like to do when describing anything that has a clean edge to it, I find it's very helpful to put down. I'm just trying to locate the edge of the pot in relation to the flowers above it. And I think maybe it's halfway through that one, so maybe about there. And I'm not saying that these are gospel, but they're close enough, purples. I like to be able to find the edge so that I can be vigorous when I explain the colour within the edge. Now, the other side then, so this, it might be that flower will come over a little bit further this way, so that the pot doesn't read as being too wide. So this is the thing, like, you can adjust as you go. It's not like you've messed up something entirely. If the flower needs to be shifted, shift the flower. You know, sure. It's all right. And that's what painting is. It's constantly shifting edges until you feel what's true, kind of, you know, until you find what's true for you from your angle. So I would believe your eyes and do your best to faithfully represent what it is that you're seeing. Yeah, and it's okay actually, because this flower can afford to move a little bit to the left in relation to this one. Yeah. So I'm okay with that. Usually if you follow what feels right or what looks right, really believing your eyes, you'll find that it fits like jigsaw pieces with the rest too, usually. Okay. So I think I'm noticing that the edge of the vase on this side is going to cut through a few of the petals on the flower above. And this, you know, the edge of that is just about hitting the petals that are here. And this flower is going to sit below the rim of it. And sure, I might as well locate roughly where the bottom of the jug will be. I'm not wanting to do a precise geometric shape entirely, but I wanted to have enough clarity enough of a clear position that I recognise what it is, you know. I think I'll put out a bit more kitchen paper. I like having the kitchen paper on the table to dry the brush, and it's good having lots of water as well, because you see the paper towel the brush is quite wet, is quite green still, so I can put it into there if I want it not to be so green. It's not really that critical with the grey that I'm going to be doing, but if you had green on your brush and you were wanting to do something really white, then it would be worth having, you know, dipping it into the other pot of water. So now I'm going to try and find a colour. In actual fact, it's not too far away from that green, the pot. So I'm putting some Payne's grey into it, and I think a bit of yellow ochre. I don't want it to be very similar to the background grey. No. And it's warmer, isn't it? Yeah, a bit more yellow, exactly that. So the yellow ochre, I think, is a good colour. And of course the top and bottom are slightly different, but I think they're close enough that I can first even almost use the same colour, maybe with a slight adjustment. A bit of brown into it might make the bottom colour So I'm using the Van Dyke brown to describe the colour that's down there. A little bit more of the brown I think I need. And I'm not too worried about the blue line. We can do that with a bit of collage maybe, or we could do it with the powder blue, you know, that powder blue paint, if you can see it there, that colour. That powder blue could be a line through it. So I think I'm first wanting to get the feeling of the, and I think there's something with the texture of that that's maybe wanting my hand to print into it to get a feeling of the texture of the lower bit. And it's a bit darker to the left, so I'm just putting a bit more paint on the left side, a bit more of the Van Dyke brown and a touch of ultramarine blue into that Van Dyke brown, because I think it's a little bit cooler there. Okay, and I'm kind of okay with that, although maybe a little bit more bluish, not brown but blue, could be put in there. I think I find my hands know better than other things, you know, rather than the brush maybe. My hand is kind of helpful to. Okay, I'm conscious of taking. Are you still okay? I mean, almost ready now to do something. And I suppose the thing that I could do here is with the damp paper towel made into a drawing tool for myself. I can lift out some of those petals that are coming down over the rim. And even there's a drip coming down, but I think that'll be quite nice actually. I didn't expect it, but I think it'll be welcome enough. And I'll lift off this then and see if it's starting to feel like the vase for me. And like I said, with the purples and the eucalyptus, you can get away with very little really. And maybe once you've set the scene, we can do a bit more negotiating to describe the daisies in more detail with applying paint and modelling. But I think there's a lot to be said for starting with something that's a wild goose. You know, you can make a wild goose tame, but you can't make a tame goose wild. So starting with the sense of freedom. And I think that's all that I'm going to do for the moment. And we'll put a board up and see what happens for you. Is that okay? And you can go back more than I was going back. I wasn't standing back enough there. So I'll just take the video around just to see my viewpoint. That was what I was looking at. Yeah, from that point of view, I'm just showing where the flowers are located. Might be kind of helpful. I'll take a screenshot of this for you as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so thanks for watching and look forward to step 2. See ya.